For more on this, we're joined by Vicky Pryce, who's Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economics and Business Research. Good to see you, Vicky. Now, with the US-Iran peace agreement taking shape and erasing the regional war premium, how much of this drop is a temporary market correction versus a permanent structural reassessment of European defence stocks?
I think you're absolutely right to say that everyone is concerned about where the money will come from for the extra spending. I think we need to nevertheless bear in mind two things. First of all, that stocks had done rather well because of the anticipation of change to happen, which is actually happening. Perhaps they had overdone it in terms of pricing it in. So we are bound to see a bit of volatility happening. And the second thing is that, in fact, spending on defense has gone up very significantly. If you just look at the last year, 2025, overall, globally, there was an increase of just under 3% in defense spending. In Europe itself, the increase was about 14%. So it is real and it is happening. The question is, of course, is it happening fast enough for all the companies involved? And it is indeed worrying in a number of countries as to where the money will come from, as you rightly said in your introduction. In the UK, we've even lost our defense minister because he felt that the amount which is being allocated to defense in the UK to meet the requirements to up the percentage of GDP that is spent on defense were simply not sufficient. So there is a worry across about where the money will come from and whether there are new ways in which you can fund the extra spending that is needed. So yes, we are in a position of perhaps waiting and seeing a little bit and a bit of volatility, but the underlying trend is still up.
So European defence equities nearly doubled last year on Trump's push for a 5% target, but with nations now missing even the 2% baseline benchmark, have stretched public finances made those massive spending promises completely unrealistic?
Well, possibly. I think this is why everyone is thinking about new ways of funding. Even in the UK, one is talking about possibly issuing special bonds that people in the country can in fact, participate in terms of purchasing them. So there is also the possibility, which has already been discussed and in fact more or less set up, of the European countries all borrowing together under a new fund for defence. There is also the possibility, you talked about stretched finances, of individual countries being given permission to spend on defence outside the Stability and Growth Pact, which is applicable in Eurozone countries. So it allows perhaps a little bit more spending and the deficit to increase. But you're absolutely right. What you're seeing because of, going back to the financial crisis, then COVID, then the war in Ukraine and the energy crisis, that companies have had to rely a lot on government support across the board, and countries have had to borrow extra to support the economy, and that has resulted, of course, in debt-to-GDP ratios being very high, and global borrowing continues to rise, and there are concerns there. The question for many will be, how do they prioritize that spending that they need in advance, and are there any innovative ways in which to spend on defense? And there's a big argument right now as to whether, in fact, defense could be a help to growth. A lot will depend again on how it's financed. If you do it through taxes, that's a problem. If you cut other things, that is a problem as well for growth. But I think that debate is going to, intensify over the next few months because the situation is as it was. More spending needs to happen. NATO is still an issue that everyone is worried about, and the threats are there.
Vicky Pryce in London. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for speaking to us.